Strap in. It's time for a conversation. See, a lot of people have been talking about things like data centers in Citrus County. And of course, it seems like everybody and their brother, especially those who are against it, are posting on social media. And the posts, for the most part, are about antiquated information. This outdated information suggests that the data centers will have massive cooling towers and draw millions of gallons a day out of the aquifer. The only point is that's not true. And listen, if you're for or against, it really doesn't matter. The thing is, if you are going to be against it based on true facts. The PDC had a meeting, and in that meeting, they had already talked about how if one does come here, it would be a closed loop system. So that wouldn't impact the environment. The reality is, it's okay to post things on social media, obviously. I do it all the time. It's okay to object to having a data center here. Absolutely. If you don't want one here, come to the table, have the conversation. But when you come to the table with wrong information, it actually makes your argument worse. So yes, I'm literally here telling the people who do not want a data center to do a better job in their argument, because the minute you come to the county commission and say, we don't want this data center because it's going to drain our aquifer, and the county commissioners look from the dais and say, well, no, this is a closed loop system. It won't do any of that. Where's your argument then, right? So be smart about what's happening with the data centers. Now, personally, I'm not opposed to them. It should be done right in the right areas, and where it's planned, potentially by Holder, may or may not be the right area. But since we're using the data centers right now as we're talking about it, I understand the need for it, the massive use of AI and that growth of an industry. And don't get me wrong, potentially it might be in space and we may never need it on the ground again. That being said, this is what's happening now. One of the things you should be conversing about is making sure it has a self-contained energy source, meaning something like a small liquid natural gas energy plant. Why can they do that? Well, in Citrus County, there is actually a LNG line that goes through the Holder Industrial Park. Sounds like they may have been planning this all along, but truth is, there's no reason for them to take the energy from the power lines to do the data center, because they can create their own energy right there. Well, that's a more realistic argument. If you are not going to actually be part of the conversation, then that's fine. Don't worry about this. If you are pro or con, come to the table with facts. Come to the table with realistic information. Like one of the people commented, well, this potentially is going to make lots of noise. That's not true, because if it has a self-contained LNG plant on site, which of course increases the amount of jobs, then there's no need for diesel generators to run, because it does not have to pick up for the peak hours that a power system like the grid would have to deal with. So again, whether you're for it or against it, it's okay, but make the best argument based on facts, not based on some outdated memes or videos on social media. They're just not good. They're not factual, and it will just hurt your argument. Now let's talk about the animal shelter. Wait. Not if you're for it or against it. That was really never the conversation. It's about cost. It's estimated costs about $20 million. Let's not even talk about that. Let's talk about the reality is, when they came to the commission with the new suggested plans, they are suggesting separate buildings and things like that. This means you're paying for unnecessary brick and mortar. You're paying for unneeded electrical wires to be run. There's no reason for it to be more than just one building. Why are they doing more than just one building? God, who knows? But That should have actually been part of the conversation the other day when they approved it. Mind you, 3 for, 2 against. Now, here's the thing. During the discussion brought forward by Commissioner Finnegan, the 3 that were in favor of the animal shelter didn't discuss it at all. They couldn't even give an example of why at $20 million with the cost per square foot, with the additional buildings, they were for it. Where was the pro and con conversation that improves the outcome? Where's the pro and con conversation that shows the community you not only care about animals, but you care about the taxpayers? This is one of the things that's constantly going on in this county. And I have to tell you, it was a tactic to make the commissioner look bad. Absolutely. I know, I've had to live through this. Instead of showing the knowledge that they supposedly had about this issue, they basically don't say nothing. That's embarrassing, but it's more so embarrassing on the commissioners who didn't say anything. Do you not want to have a pro and con conversation? Is it my way or the highway because I'm a commissioner and I don't care, I'm not going to talk about this? Or were you afraid to get booed in the crowd if there was a part of that you may have actually agreed with the other commissioner? See, this is a major problem in government. We have commissioners who are afraid to have good, strong adversarial dialogue, discourse on a subject to move it forward that's best not just for a group you know you're going to make happy, but for the county as a whole. We know that the animal shelter could have been done better by simply making it one large building. That's it, one large building. We know that the contractor went above and beyond what they were suggested they should. But without a doubt, there was no conversation. And that, commissioners, is an embarrassment and is disrespectful of your fellow commissioners. And I could swear there was a commissioner who wanted to elevate the respect and the discord on the board, and yet couldn't even have a truly informed intellectual conversation about the pros and cons. Again, the animal shelter, we need one. I even supported doing one. But not having the conversation is the way they basically hide from either not knowing or hide from the fact that they might have people point at them and boo them if they agree on something, or it's a way to basically beat up on the other commissioner by leaving that commissioner hanging. Very unprofessional, should not be done. Your constituents expect more from our leaders. At the Aviation Advisory Board, the fixed-based operator came forward and said, we have fixed all the fueling issues. It was broken back in December, and now it's fixed. It was a little more difficult to find somebody to fix the issues. Again, from right before Christmas to just shortly of now, it took months, not weeks like he suggested, but months to fix the fuel issue. Why did it take Inverness literally 2 to 3 weeks to fix pretty much the exact same issue, but it took months, not a couple weeks as was implied, but months to fix this issue? Why? See, that's unacceptable. And yet, we have the Crystal River Airport that is having tons of money that's going to be flooded into it with fixing the fuel farm. They're going to do upgrades for certain hangars. Okay, good. But what is the fixed-based operator doing to make that antiquated Crystal River Airport look up to date? Where is the return on investment of improving that airport? See, this is what's the problem. You have somebody who has an airport, they can't provide fuel, and then at some point they fix the fuel And they come and they brag about how they fixed it, even though it took additional time compared to their sister airport in Inverness. And we're spending how much money on this airport to fix these fuel tanks and the fuel farm and potentially for the hangars? What is the fixed base operator actually doing? Is he just there to run it and collect the money? Or is he there to have a plan of operation to improve that airport? Because I can tell you, my friends who go to the airport tell me basically it looks just like it did in the 1980s. And let's also talk about the issue of the lights. It's funny, the lights over in Inverness have apparently, from my sources, been a problem for a very long time. And it's very dangerous to do that. And you have the aviation sector that could have fixed it then before the FAA came in to do this project to fix the glide slope and things like that. Why didn't they? Again, more government lack of oversight, both of Crystal River and the fueling issues and fixing the lighting issues as soon as they broke. Talk to people in the industry, I'm sure somebody will tell you that should have been fixed right away. It was a safety hazard. Again, government bureaucrats can be good. Government bureaucrats can be bad. And it's appropriate to call out the government bureaucrats when they do bad to make sure in the future they do good. And I'm more than happy to do that. Recently, the Florida legislature passed HB 1329. This is a transparency bill. This bill that passed the legislature and has been signed by the governor basically will ensure that anybody can be able to see, well, what the staff is being paid. So it also enforces putting the budget online, and it even ensures that 5 days prior to the budget hearing for the proposed budget, it be put online, allowing you to be able to go out, see the proposed budget. Now, some people say, well, some of this can already be done. Now it's going to be codified into law in such a way to ensure more transparency. And I'll have to tell you, it's important because a lot of time governments like to hide the way they do things, well, by not putting things online fast enough or burying them. This is going to ensure that people can see who's getting paid what in government and the budgets and things like that. And here's an important part to that. So my experience with the school system previously is that they would take a person in one position, change that title, and that new title was an unfilled position previously, and now that unfilled position has a higher pay. That is how they were able to actually increase somebody's salary by simply saying, well, we just moved them into another position. And yet the position basically did the same exact thing. But now you can track that. Now you will be able to find that information without having to do a public records request. You want to know who gets paid what? We talk about the bureaucrat. And it's nice to know how much they're getting paid. Some of these people get paid a very nice penny. I mean, hell, our county commissioners are making over $80,000 a year. The staff is obviously some less, some more, some over $100,000. The reality is transparency, or any piece of legislation that is for transparency, is a damn good thing. When I was in the Florida House, I actually passed legislation to put the budgets online down to the sub-object level. And I have to tell you, I did this with Senator Dean, God rest his soul, because he wanted people to have transparency in their government. He wants to know who was spending what. And this is more and more what we need each and every day. Hopefully in the future, there will be another bill that says who spent what where within the government, so we can track where our government spending is going as well. Why? So we can actually be critical of this spending. We talk about Doge, and God, we need Doge. But the reality is, we also need to ourselves be able to identify who's being paid what, how much is being paid to each department, and what the overall budget is. So thank God that bill passed. Thank God the governor signed it. And I look forward to taking full advantage of that to hold both our elected officials and our bureaucrats accountable. Property tax. Everybody agrees. Well, we hate property tax because property tax is the one thing that basically means that you never own your home, ever. Because as long as you owe the government for your property, they technically have control over your property. You never own it. You stop paying taxes, the government can take it. That's how it works. So the state of Florida legislature has been working. Now, they did not pass legislation this year. There might be a special session. The problem is the legislature went from a form of easing it in to a all at one time. Pros and cons of both. Doing it all at once, well, we haven't done a complete Doge. We don't know where everything's being spent, and we don't know where to get the other money. So I understand where some people in the Senate may have objected. But going forward into the special session, they need to have a conversation about, do they need to create a new tax? Do they need to transfer it over to sales tax? Do they need to ease this in a little bit at a time? Say maybe start at an age bracket down to 85. You're wiped off the records. No taxes until you sell that property. Whoever buys it next, they get it. Next year or next 5 years, down to 75, and so on down incrementally on a pathway to zero for property tax. Okay, there's ways to do this. The reality is there was so much pushback from the cities, and understandably, about how do they get money. But here's the thing I have a problem with. The ability to generate revenue in the counties is also part of the problem. Again, you look at Citrus County, our taxes are basically funded off of one thing: property tax. Now, mind you, this property tax would not affect businesses. It's only for residential, and it's not even for second homes. It's for primary homes. Why couldn't we just simply create more business revenue? The state of Florida did that in the past by changing taxes and regulations, and they increased the amount of revenue coming in because we have more businesses doing business in Florida because of both Governor Scott and Governor DeSantis. And this is where good example of a county or a city should follow what the state did. Lower the barriers to entry for business. Grow and increase the opportunities by designating certain areas and giving them a little more latitude. And that will relieve the pressure on the taxpayers. So when the property tax does get cut, you'll feel it less. Oh, and by the way, if you increase your revenue before the tax cuts, don't increase the budget. That will just make it that much harder when the time comes. Now, I watched the PDC recently, and I try to watch these boards and the aviation board and the PDC and stuff like that. And earlier we talked about issues that the aviation board heard. But the Planning and Development Commission had one of its members ask, well, a stupid question. Now, people say there's no such thing as a stupid question. A question that is completely out of context of the topic being discussed is a stupid question. So this individual inquired when a decision was made about changing the potential for having a sign. Now, the other members of the council basically went forward and said, okay, you know what? Let's ask about this. What about the signage? And what about the building? What about the views? And good questions. But when somebody made a decision that they want to change their mind, nothing to do with it. You need to, on the PDC, either review it, see if it's good or bad, have done some research on how others done across the state of Florida to offer suggestions, and then either vote in support or in opposition of having it. Truth is, they ended up voting against both of these applicants. That's fine. But we need to make sure that those people who are on these advisory committees, like the PDC, Planning and Development Council, actually ask good questions, make statements based on facts, comes up with learned knowledge from doing research, like we had the request by staff of the ex parte communication, and they said, a couple of them, yes, we went out to the site. Okay, good. Do more of that. But I also want to note something. There was no minutes from the previous meeting. Why not? What stopped them from doing the minutes for the previous committee? Where was the staff? Why didn't they do it? What held them back? Did somebody fall off the globe and you had nobody in the world to replace them? No alternate who could have done the minutes? That is unacceptable. Having a meeting like the PDC and not having the minutes for approval is completely inappropriate. They actually should have had the minutes. And this is, again, another example of broken government. Last, if you feel there's a topic you want me to research, to do a dive on, then please message me on Facebook and let me know what that topic is. There's a lot of things coming down the pipeline. We really need to do all we can to make sure your voice is heard. To do that, you need to be as knowledgeable as possible. I'm more than happy to help drive issues in a conversation that helps Citrus County. So if you want to know something or you want a topic to be discussed, let me know. I'll look into it for you. Okay, go ahead and unbuckle.